A very delightful morning and welcome to Rise and Shine, coming to you live on Spectrum Television. Of course, we're beaming live from Uyo, the very beautiful capital city of Akwa Ibom State. My name is Francis Oyima Adet, and as always, we're very much excited to be here with you and, of course, to help kickstart your week. I do like to believe you had an interesting weekend and you are ready to set new goals and, of course, within the course of the week, be able to tick off those boxes, and then by the time we get to weekend, you have every reason to kick back, relax, and then, of course, be able to say thank you. Of course, we are gradually getting to the month of December, the month of festivities, when everything is going to be on the high alert. Of course, when it comes to celebrations, regardless of the economic situation in Nigeria, regardless of the circumstances or the things, the incidences happening in the country, we as Nigerians, we seem to have, some extraordinary strength and energy to cushion the effect of the incidences or happenings or circumstances, all around us. And that is one thing that we have to give to ourselves. Thumbs up to every Nigerian individual, Nigerian person who is able to, navigate through this very trying time. Of course, on Rise and Shine, we'll always be talking Nigeria, the latest developments within and outside the shores of the country. We'll also touch light on things outside of Nigeria, which, of course, we already know the world is a global village, and whatever happens in other parts of the world also has a way of coming back to affect us in the country. Of course, also like to encourage you to join our social media platforms and your script for you to be able to send your comments and contributions on any of the issues that we will be talking about this morning. Of course, you can also reach us on a social media platform, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. That will take you to all other platforms. Good morning, Uyai. Welcome to...
What you paused?
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you. It's a beautiful Monday morning. A good day to rise and shine wherever we are, and we're grateful for life. Of course, most of the biggest conversation this morning is on the off-season election, but then I'll just allow you to do the rundown on what we have for conversation this morning.
Well, of course, the off-season election is top of the focus for today. Literally, the entirety of the weekend from Saturday up until yesterday, up until this morning, we're still having reactions coming from the respective states of the federation where we had the off-season election. Particularly, one has been suspended to, be continued later on this afternoon. But on the flash news, we'll be looking at Dangote Refinery, which have gotten a license to refine 300,000 barrels per day of crude oil in Nigeria. We'll be looking also into the cost of living, where inflation is currently rising on food prices and energy. Of course, we'll also talk about the off-season election. We see that Uzodinma has won in Imo State, Ododo wins in Kogi State, and of course, Bayelsa elections collation of results has been adjourned till later this afternoon. We'll be looking into that. Of course, reaction to his victory in Imo State, Uzodinma went for Thanksgiving. And I've also said that the election victor has vindicated him as far as the Imo State people is concerned. Bayelsa INEC adjourns collation till Monday noon. That's today. Stated that. Of course, Dino Melaye has called for total cancellation of the result, and he described it as shameful Kogi governorship polls. We'll also be looking at the comments coming from the Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who has asked Nigerian youths to consider first and foremost saving Nigeria before making demands. Yet another comment asking Nigerians to sacrifice. And of course, we'll still piggyback to the same questions we've asked consistently on Rise and Shine. In the leadership of Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is asking Nigerians constantly to sacrifice. What efforts and what sacrifices are they also making on the pad? All of these and so much more we'll be bringing to you this morning on Rise and Shine.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine. Rise and shine. Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
This is Rise and Shine, and like we stated, we're going to talk about a whole lot of things. Let's start off with Dangote Refinery. For a while now, we've been talking about Nigeria's inability to refine crude oil locally in Nigeria. And of course, a lot of persons were very excited. Nigerians were very excited when during the last few months of the outgone administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, we saw Dangote Refinery actually coming into being. And of course, that was greeted with a lot of comments and commendations from Nigerians who had said, for the longest time, the federal government has not been able to get the nation's refineries up and operational. Of course, we saw Dangote's refineries inauguration and launching garnering a lot of support from within and outside the shores of Nigeria. It's been said the refinery has secured a license to refine a total of 300,000 barrels of Nigerian crude oil per day and will begin processing of gasoline soon. Of course, the refinery was supposed to start production in August, but meets that target in addition to several other issues over the years. Dangote insists that his refinery will start producing very soon. Of course, the report stated that though the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited trade oil on behalf of Nigeria, in an interview with Newsmain, the NNPCL Limited had revealed plans to supply oil to Dangote Refinery. Of course, remember some 2 weeks back, the federal government came out to regret the inability of the government to produce and provide crude oil to Dangote Refinery to be able to, refine it locally back in the country. Of course, these also raise the concerns of Nigerians as to why Dangote Refinery will be up, yet because of the inability of the federal government to provide oil, we cannot have oil currently being, refined in Nigeria. Of course, looking into that, the refinery, talking about Dangote now, said they're receiving crude oil from the NNPC and disclosed that they're going to soon take off export. Now, one question Nigerians are asking on all of this is, yes, you've told Nigerians you're going to kickstart production or refining of crude oil very soon. How soon is the refining of crude oil going to happen? When is the refining of crude oil exactly going to kickstart in Nigeria? And looking at the numbers, 300,000 barrels per day is a significant amount of refining to be done in Nigeria.
The expectations are very high at this time in the country, and especially because in the first place, the first months that were expected by Nigerians for Dangote refineries to churn out products was overstretched. It did not happen, and then explanations were given by the federal government. Dangote tried to explain itself, on top of which was the fact that Nigeria was not even able to supply him the amount of crude that was necessary for them to process. Now it's just a matter of fresh information with regards to refining crude products in the country. How much of this is going to become a reality for Nigerians, seeing that there is an expectation for them to refine 300,000 barrels per day worth of crude. Remember initially, some of the guidelines that were given was that the NNPCL was going to only supply a quarter of what Dangote refinery needed to refine, and then Dangote Refinery was actually going to outsource the remaining part of it. Does this still spell really good for us with regards to how much we are willing to do in the industry? It doesn't sound so good. The fact that the NNPCL cannot supply Dangote Refinery all of the crude that it needs to refine in the country, we are still looking at Dangote Refinery importing some crude. That in the overall may affect the prices of these commodities when it is churned out, and all the other speculations that have surrounded this initiative of Dangote, speculations of it partly owned by the Federal Republic of Nigeria, or some of those things of unsubstantiated. But this looks like good news. But then again, it's not worth all of the celebration until we actually see that Dangote Refinery has worked out these things and actually produced and put it out there in the market. I think that is when Nigerians will be able to say, okay, this is a job well done. For now, it's just information of whatever their underground proceedings are, and literally the way it goes should be taken with a pinch of salt. At this time, we need to see more of proactiveness. We need to see work done, as opposed to all of the promises that we have in the country. But then, just to take some more of our flash news this morning, on a rather really sad note, yesterday Sunday, we saw the fact that an aircraft did crash land in the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in the Federal Capital Territory yesterday. Thankfully, there was no casualty, no fatality involved. It's just that one flank of the aircraft caught on grass on the runway and all of that, and that's why the airplane actually did crash land. But it raises a lot of questions when you're saying that one of the wheels of the aircraft caught up on grass. Are we saying that the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport is unkept? Is it that the pilots flew too close to the edge of the of the runway and all of those things? It's a rather serious issue at this time. So as it stands, that particular runway of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport is closed down upon investigations as to what exactly led to that particular accident, and also to be able to tow that particular aircraft off the runway. But it is good to see that right now there were no casualties, there were no fatalities. And just last week Friday, also in Ibadan, we saw that the private jet that carried the Minister for Power also crash landed. So I think it is time for the aviation sector to really look into what exactly is happening with regards to runway. Are we looking at low lighting? Are we looking at what's the state of our pilots that are flying? Now we are grateful that in both incidents over the weekend we haven't seen any fatalities recorded. But then imagine the kind of psychological trauma that's going to cause to everyone that was on that particular flight. So let's see what the Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, is going to do about this. Let's review our runways. This is the holiday season. Air traffic is going to be on the increase, and we need to know that the airways are safe for Nigerians.
Well, of course, a lot of questions definitely will be asked when you're talking about natural occurrences leading to incidences or accident. That will definitely put a lot of question mark on the safety and security of Nigerians and people coming into Nigeria, people who are traveling on a daily basis through the different airspace routes. One very, very solid question Nigerians would ask is, first, is the Nigerian runway, are our Nigerian runways not being kept in a way that it should be kept? And in the event that it isn't, who are the people responsible to make sure that the runways and facilities in our Nigerian airports across boards are kept in the best possible conditions that they could possibly be? Another question that will be asked is also the pilot itself and the functioning of the aircraft. When last was that aircraft serviced, and how professional, how ready to go, how airworthy was the aircraft that was used that had to crash land. A lot of questions are definitely going to be asked, but we do hope that the investigations that has been instituted by the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau will be able to unravel the circumstances surrounding the incident that happened, and then we'll be able to curtail further incidences. We don't want to go back to the time where plane crash was almost like a regular thing in Nigeria. You wake up today, there's a plane crash in Lagos, the next day there's a plane crash in Port Harcourt, or the next day you're looking at another plane crash in Abuja. It was literally like every day there was a plane crash. Every week, every month, you just definitely wake up to news of people dying because of plane crash. But all of this can be avoided if people who are interested with responsibilities, from the pilots to the people whose duty it is to maintain the airports, do their job professionally. But we do hope that when this investigation is done and people are found culpable, they will definitely face the full wrath of the law to serve as a deterrent for others who might not be doing their duties as at when due.
It's very important that caution be in place as of now. We do not want sad stories that touch the heart. I mean, it's a holiday season. Let us have peace in the country. We've already come a whole year. We've not had these kinds of hazards, and now I think that having these kinds of incidents and there are no fatalities now is a stern warning to the aviation sector in Nigeria. Now is the best time to do something. Let's make sure that all of our aircrafts are airworthy. Our pilots are not fatigued when they get to do the job, and all other things that must be in place. How well lit are our runways, how kept is the area surrounding that. When you say that the wheel of an aircraft took on grass and that was how it veered off, that is a really, really serious issue. But of course, we're going to move away from that, still looking at our flash news for this morning. We remember that last week the president did a quick trip to Saudi Arabia, where he actually was in conversation with the Sheikh of Saudi Arabia, several business conversations. But just on a lighter note this morning, we see that the president embarked on the Islamic rites at the end of his official duties in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, where he participated in the Saudi African Summit on Friday. Of course, the president has been out of the country since over the weekend. Of course, President Tinubu's mission to the Holy Land for the Ummah was made public Sunday evening by his senior special assistant on media and publicity, Abdulaziz, of course, on X. We see the fact that he took his time to pray in the course of the spiritual journey. He offered prayers for the prosperity of Nigeria and sought divine guidance to lead the country. Of course, he took time off at the end of his official engagement in Saudi Arabia to perform the Lesser Hajj, the Ummah, on Sunday. Of course, he used the opportunity to pray for greatness and divine guidance for him as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The President will be back anytime from now to the country. He has done his official duties, taking out time to pray for the country also and pray for himself. Basically, he needs all of the prayers that he can get. First of all, I think we've seen past presidents acknowledge the fact that Nigeria is not one easy nation to lead. Diverse multi-ethnicity and all of our diversities, and the lead man at the helms of affairs needs to find the best possible way to get this very big ship to shore.
Well, of course, Nigeria is no small place, and there is no role, no matter how small you might think, as far as leadership is concerned, that wouldn't require a whole lot of thought-provoking activities to be able to find solutions to the different problems bedeviling the nation. But when you talk about President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, a lot of questions will always come into play. Right about now, a lot of Nigerians are saying, let's just keep calm and give the president time to, explore all of the avenues he's possibly going to explore, and let's see how that is going to work out for Nigerians and in the interest of, growing Nigeria's economy. And at this point, the host of praying is not just the president who is praying. Nigerians are praying. And I think if there is anything Nigerians are good at across the different religion, it's praying. The Muslims will pray, the Christians would pray, the traditionalists will pray. Literally everyone. I mean, just yesterday I came across a post and it said, you know what, whether you're a Muslim, you are a Christian, you are a traditionalist, at the end of the day, all of us acknowledge the one supreme being as the one in charge of our lives there on earth. So literally everybody prays. I came across a video where, everybody was kicking against the pastor for always preaching Jesus. And guess what? Within the course of the journey, there was an accident, and even the Muslim called out Jesus. The traditionalists, the herbalists called Jesus. Everybody in the video literally just called Jesus. And I'm like, okay, do we actually have to get to this point? Or is this just about a video prank? But whether or not you admit it, whether or not you agree to, some of the comment, the reality remains that all of us worship a supreme being, and all of us look up to that supreme being to look and guide our activities here on earth. And that is one thing that is paramount. Whatever name you call the supreme being, that's left between you and your religion. But of course, praying for Nigeria has always been a thing, and we do hope that someday, while we pray, we also make ourselves available to take the necessary actions, because God is not going to come down, Allah is not going to come down to change Nigeria. It's going to work through humans. It's going to work through each and every one of us. And when we pray and yet refuse to take the responsibility of being, the reflection of the supreme being that we so much, worship and adore, and being his replica to each other on planet Earth in Nigeria, then we're definitely not ready to see transformation.
Just to end the flash news this morning, on a really sad note, as offsprings of things happening in the elections, we saw the fact that the YPP chairman was murdered in Anambra State, and this is a serious issue at this time. Of course, there were election proceedings happening there, and then there was a call for a rerun by the court. But in the midst of all of that, it's reported that some masked gunmen came to the area where he was and then shot him dead. Of course, the Court of Appeal had ordered that a rerun election be conducted in 13 polling units in Kaka Ward 1 between Princess Chinwe Nwabife of YPP, who was declared winner of the February 25 National Assembly election, and her opponent, Chief Okudili Ezenwakwo, who contested on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. So I think in terms of election petitions and tribunals going forward, we see the fact that the chairman of the YPP in Anambra State, as the news has put it, has been murdered. So when you use the term murder, it means that there's going to be need for a very serious investigation into the killing of the chairman of the YPP in the state. And what does this entail? How is this going to impact on the verdict of the court? I know the court has said what it has said, and the death of a person is not is not going to necessarily affect the execution of that. But I mean, the helmsman is taking off, and to a very large extent, it does have a political undertone.
Well, that's a completely different narrative, a completely different story. That's a murder case, definitely within the jurisdiction of the Nigerian police, and it's their duty to find out who murdered the YPP chieftain. But beside that, one thing about politics, one thing about life is that in the hierarchy of things, there is always somebody fit enough to jump into the leadership position. I mean, you're talking about the chairman of the party. That means there are other excos, the publicity secretary of the party, other members of the excos of the party are definitely going to be there. So they're still going to fight for justice. So if the opposition feels like, oh, when we take out the chairman, then we must have taken out their strongest support system, then that's a complete lie. And we do hope that we get to a point in Nigeria where assassination of opponents is no longer the order of the day, where people do not, for whatever reason, feel like until they shed the blood of another, then they cannot grace victory. I mean, election should not be a do or die affair in Nigeria like we've seen in other countries of the world. It should best be a matter of who wins and who loses. I mean, if you lose today, you would win tomorrow. Look at the likes of the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. How many times did he contest and lost election? He still eventually became the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There have been people like him all around this country, yet you don't see some of the animosity that is being exhibited by some persons within the political space. So it definitely calls for swinging into action by the Nigerian security forces. It definitely calls for ensuring that the perpetrators are brought to justice, and anyone within or outside opposition, that is found wanting, definitely face the full wrath of the law. But of course, that's where we're going to put a pause on the flash news and head out to the major news stories.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
Well, on our major news stories, we're starting up with the call by Syria on President Ahmed Bola Tinubu to ensure that electoral offenders are prosecuted. These conversations has been going on back and forth. We've seen Syria and other civil society organizations consistently calling on President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, calling on INEC to ensure that issues surrounding election offenders are addressed. But of course, when you talk about offenders, one thing Nigerians will always ask, are you referring to the last gather of people who are caught, or you're referring to the complete syndicate? And for us to be able to get to the complete syndicate, it means we'll also be talking about people in top ranking positions in government. So yes, CRAB is doing a great job calling for electoral offenders to be prosecuted. And so far, we know that as far as the just concluded election is concerned, INEC is yet to begin prosecution of electoral offenders in Nigeria. We were told it's going to commence soon. Over 100 plus still waiting to be tried, even when the NBA and lawyers in Nigeria have given themselves to help prosecute the electoral offenders pro bono. It's still a problem, it's still a concern, why up until now INEC and relevant government agencies are yet to do their job.
Well, Serap is doing what Serap is doing. At least that's serving as a cry out and a call for Nigerians looking into very serious issues. When you're talking about election offenders, we're talking all the way from the elections from February 25 to March 11, everything that happened. And we know that just recently the numbers were separated as to over 167 or 69 thereabout of people, 69,000 actually, that are remaining as election offenders that need to be processed. So let's see how quickly this is going to be handled. Also remember that there was a time that the CJN had actually cried out that the courts were overwhelmed. They had too many in terms of numerical strength of election related cases that were in their courts, but they've separated all of, and also at some point all cases were lumped together, but they have separated the ones that have direct direct relationship with elections, and that's going to be sorted out that way. When we now add the off-cycle elections that just happened over the weekend, the numbers may stretch again. But Sarah is asking that arrest of sponsors and perpetrators of ills during the elections be squarely handled at this time. We do hope that that's something that the federal government, the judiciary, INEC is not a punishing arm of government, but I mean bringing out the requisite information that will aid in the punishment of these persons. And like Francis said, it must go beyond the person that you caught snatching the box. You must find out the person who asked them to snatch the box, and the person over that one that also gave the instruction. If we are willing to go all through that line of giving justice, then we can now be talking serious business. But then let's get to, I think, the conversation that most ears are itching to hear this morning. Every of the conversation is about the all-cycle elections. How did it happen in Imo State? How did it happen in Bayelsa? How did it happen in Kogi State? The weekend was thick with anticipation and expectation as to who was going to return and who was going to go back. We had two states, Bayelsa and Imo State, where we had an incumbent rerunning to come back to office. The person of Hope Uzodinma in Imo State and Duodiri of Bayelsa State. But top of this note is the fact that before this off-cycle election, one of the conversations that Nigerians were having, INEC was having, was is INEC going to upload the results on the viewing portal at this time? But we see that as a result of the November 11 elections held in these three states, INEC did upload 9,925 election results. Of course, it uploaded a total of 9,900 and 9,000, let me get that, 9,925 election results on his result viewing portal from Imo, Kogi and Bayelsa governorship elections held on November 11. Now, of course, we see the fact that it uploaded 2,123 election results out of 2,442 from Bayelsa governorship election. For Kogi, that uploaded 3,396 results out of 3,508. For Imo State, it had uploaded 4,406 election results out of 4,720 results. So the results viewing portal was actually used by the INEC. Now we are also going to begin to have the conversation of how satisfactory was this particular uploading of the results. And as it stands, of course, there's going to be more results expected to be uploaded out of this state, because that is not all the votes that were cast out of these individual states.
Well, it's a serious conversation that we need to look at. And this morning, one very major question Nigerians are asking is, are we joking in this country?
Did we have just 9,000 plus people vote?
Now, beside the just 9,000 plus people voting, beside the uploading of the electoral materials, remember just last week, INEC came to say all of those are illegal. Everything that has to do with technology, everything that has to do with uploading of result does not necessarily mean they are going to do it. And then, of course, with the statement coming from the electoral umpire, Nigerians ask a whole lot of questions, and we ask those questions as well. Now, of course, it's like literally what Peter Obi of the Labour Party and Atiku Abubakar of the PDP said during the just concluded rounds of litigation. You cannot always change the rule of the game in the middle of the game and then expect that Nigerians will not have issues with it. How do you tell Nigerians that electronic transfer of result or uploading of electoral materials is not going to happen, is illegal, and then wake up in the middle of the game when elections are over and done with to upload it? So if you had woken up to tell Nigerians you're not going to upload, you should have stuck with it. And then, Nigerians would know, okay, you had said this before now. But you say one thing, and the next moment, you're waking up to do another thing. Where are we headed in this country? What are we doing exactly? And who is even responsible for all of these running around in circles, as Nigerians would call it? Because when you cannot speak and stand by your word, you're literally running around in circles. And you're taking the generality of Nigerians for granted. You're taking over 2 million plus Nigerians for fools, or as fools. And that literally is something that across board nobody is going to accept. But will the comments of Nigerians, will the reactions of Nigerians go the longest way in making the leadership of INEC to reconsider and sit back, or that of the National Assembly to look into the issues that have been raised and then, of course, proffer solutions to it? That is the major problem. That's the biggest questions we have to answer.
Well, the questions are still going to abound as long as Nigeria and the proceedings of elections are related. Like you rightly said, the rule of the game has been, changed right underneath Nigerians while the game is still being on. One would ask, is this change to fit certain quotas? Are we satisfying the political aspirations and ambition of some persons, and not looking at the generality of how and what works for Nigerians? I mean, when one thing works in a season of election and doesn't work again in another season of election, where exactly are we headed? And a lot of people and a lot of analysts have the opinion that democracy in Nigeria is still infantile. We are not growing at the pace that we ought to grow because of these kinds of interjections by authorities that be. Now, the big question is, we did not have 9,000 plus people come out to vote in all of these 3 states. And I mean, INEC had come out to defend itself and say it's no fault of ours. First of all, we had promised and we had, forewarned that, uploading results on this portal was not a priority for us in this particular election. So, I mean, I think it leaves really little to desire on the part of Nigerians when it comes to however these elections were done in these 3 states. But of course, it will not go without questioning and all of those things. We are still looking at, elections elections out of all of these 3 states? How has in 2 states results have been declared so far? How has it been embraced by the other contestants in the election? Of course, we see the fact that in the off-cycle polls in Imo State, Hope Uzodinma emerges as the winner of that particular election in Imo State. We saw him, go attend, put up a Thanksgiving with his wife, really, really excited about the results of the election. And like you said earlier, he's more like, these vindicates him in the face of Nigerians and in the face of, the citizens of Imo State. You remember that just before the election, there were, lots of criticism as to what was happening in Imo State. Why are you owing salaries upwards of 20 months? And we had established one fact. It is going to be at these elections that the citizens of Imo State are going to decide whether or not they want to continue in this way and, whether the governor is working for them. So far, so good. It looks like they have made their decision. And one would say when you bring the Nigerian Labour Congress into this, where we saw the likes of Joe Ajero, get manhandled, we do hope that the citizens of Imo State will also take whatever results that they get in terms of governance and the proceeds of democracy that they get from Hope Uzodinma, because, alas, he was re-elected into that particular office by the citizens of Imo State.
Well, his re-election is not something that is coming as a surprise to most Imo people. Remember, just before the election, there had been a call by people, the PDP, Labour Party and other political parties, for the resident electoral commissioner to be removed. And shortly after that, we also saw the drama that unfolded in Imo State. And of course, one would expect that Hope Uzodinma will be very thankful. I mean, it was a court order, a court judgment that brought him into the seat of power. And of course, the re-election bid for him was something that he needed so desperately, as what many analysts would say, to authenticate and validate the fact that, the court victory that was given to him was a true reflection of the people's will. And so that's why you see the governor and his entourage, celebrating the victory. But the questions the Imo people will be asking at this point, the questions Nigerians will be asking at this point is, Hope Uzodinma stayed for 4 years and was not able to do some of the basic things that led to the impasse between the NLC, TUC, and the government. Mm-hmm. And till today, he's not even been truthful and honest about the incident that happened. He's still denying. And that, of course, whether or not the governor did directly, issue the directive to his aides, as long as his aide was involved in the impasse that happened between the NLC president and, of course, the members of Imo workers, it definitely means somewhere, somehow the governor had given that directive. Because if you had not given the directive and your aide was in the middle of all this, what have you done to the aide that was involved in that incident to show that you did not give the order, you did not sanction that action that was taken on your behalf? So as long as Uzodinma didn't take that, directive, and hasn't punished the aides that have been found to have been involved in the incident that happened between, the NLC leadership and workers in Imo State and the government, definitely shows that he somewhere, somehow, has been the one given the, the directive for the actions that happened. But of course, we'll have to watch and see how this is going to unfold. Imo State is on strike. By tomorrow, we'll be talking about a nationwide strike as announced by the NLC and TUC as a result of what transpired. How that is going to spiral out, this is where Nigerians would watch and see.
Exactly what I was going to talk about, because remember that because of all of these things that happened with Joe Ajero, the NLC in Owerri, and Hope Uzodinma, there were pushes for the elections in Imo State not to hold. But thankfully, they worked it out. They sorted it. INEC sorted it. Security operatives sorted it. The elections did hold. I mean, they have a concrete result out at this time. But NLC is still on the other hand moving to carry out a nationwide strike tomorrow, and but let's see. today is still the first day of the working week. NLC also, as always, might just decide that they're going to move the proposed strike again. But let's see how that particular issue is resolved very well between the labor unions and the federal government and the Imo State government, of course. Why will you have the leader of the labor union come to your state and be manhandled for any reason? But let's just quickly rush through the remaining major stories that we have at this time. It's no news that soaring inflation has really been an issue in the year 2023, not only for Nigeria but for the rest of the world. We are seeing the impact of the Russia invasion of Ukraine. That's like a full-scale war that has spanned 2 years plus now, and also we are seeing the impact of the Israel Hamas war that is currently going on, running into 2 months already. Now, all of these things do affect the world economy. We are looking at grains, we are looking at oil exports, we are looking at several other things, of which we know that the African continent, to a very large extent, is highly dependent on importations from these countries. But now we see that there's a serious rising cost of living as inflation has risen and is soaring with regards to food and power prices. Remember, just last week, the power sector in Nigeria was making a move to increase the cost of power in Nigeria, but the president was saying we cannot do that right now, would rather subsidize power for Nigerians, especially because service delivery from the power sector is not commensurate to how much the power sector would be expecting that Nigerians will pay for services that is next to not delivered in the country. But we're also seeing soaring prices of food. We have not even seen the north in Nigeria being able to return back to the quantity of farming that they were able to do in time past. I've personally heard and know people that went into large-scale farming up north, and all of their farms will be destroyed by cattle rearers and all of those kinds of things. Now, this is impacting how much food is available in the country. I don't know how, when last you went to the market, Francis, you would see that there is no onion available. Like, for instance, in Akwa Ibom State, we have very tiny bulbs that go for 15 naira each, and this just goes to show you where exactly we are on things. But sometimes I'm burdened about always talking about the issues that we have in the country. How can we find solutions for these problems? What is the federal government doing as of now to make sure that they mitigate against soaring food prices and that of energy, two very important commodities for any thriving society?
Well, the issue of inflation is a serious one. It's constantly been like on the increase since 2020, 2021, 2022. If you look at the inflation rate in the US, as at 2022, it was at 73%, like a 23-year high as far as food and energy is concerned. You look at the inflation, energy, driven prices in other sectors as well. In 2023, it rose to about 14.3%, despite the decline in other food materials. Of course, still in the cause of inflation, when you look at the progression from 9 to 13 to 14.3, it seems like inflation is not going to end anytime soon. And one of the major reactions Nigerians are asking or calling goes to first the leadership of the Apex Bank, it goes to federal government, it goes to the relevant government agencies. Because if we are going to solve the problem of high cost of living, if we're going to solve the problem of inflation, then our policies must reflect the commitment of the federal government. Policies around security, implementation of those security policies, for instance, for us to be able to get food, produced in a large quantity or larger quantities from the agricultural sector. You're also looking at the naira-dollar disparity and the issues surrounding it. I read in the papers just this morning that Kodaso is going to move massively to transform the narrative when it comes to policies and the naira-dollar disparity and all the issues that is leading to high cost of food commodities in Nigeria when it comes to the Apex banks and its new policy guidelines. But another question Nigerians are asking is, how long is this going to take? Because it's one thing for Kodaso and his leadership to come and tell Nigerians, okay, this is the policy direction, this is the guideline that we're facing or we are taking to ensure that Nigeria gets back on the right track as far as the economy is concerned. And let's not forget the fact that with the rising cost of energy, with the rising food prices, a lot more people are being driven back into poverty. Even the people who should be exiting above water level are now being drowned. So when you have a whole lot of that, what that means is that a whole lot of people are going to live below the poverty index. You're looking at the crime rate that might be, skyrocketing. I mean, just within the course of last weekend, I got wind of the information of a young man who was, flogged thoroughly for stealing a bunch of plantain. And you ask, in as much as you do not excuse any act of criminality, we cannot support any act of criminality, but you also ask, looking at what he stole, and when he was asked, why steal?
Actions driven by hunger.
I have looked for every available measures. There are no jobs around. Even the daily work pay I usually go for, it seems like nobody is building these days. So there is literally no way for me to even make a daily, payment to survive as a person. Yeah. I haven't eaten for days. So the next available option was for me to get this. And then it shows you what poverty, what inflation, what all of the poor policies or the economic hardship in the country is pushing Nigerians to. And when you're talking about festivities, in as much as we are cautioning Nigerians the war across the states of the Federation, live within your means. There is literally no need to try and kill yourself, to try and rob a bank, to go back to the village to please anybody or to try and please anybody. Because if you do not, I mean, nobody knows as we sit here what January is going to bring. And we all know that as far as, the festivities period is concerned, after that comes January. And January oftentimes is the hardest for most people.
Are we really going to have that kind of festivity like we've had in other years? But I think, some of the concerns you raised this morning just, bothers me a little bit more. And when we're saying that, we've heard Better I Do talk a lot about poverty alleviation, about schemes put together by the federal government. I've had a lot of citizens, you, for instance, ask me, Madam Journalist, who exactly has received these palliatives, from the federal government. The mycelic cups of rice that were distributed a couple of weeks ago. Francis, I don't know if you know anyone who is still eating those cups of rice. First of all, it did not even go around and all of those kinds of things. We keep having boardroom conversations for issues that are affecting people on the street. Is there a possibility of finding, street relevant solutions for the issues that people are facing in the country? Because, it is biting. An average person literally cannot afford, food to eat. And like you rightly said, those people that remember that even the president had acknowledged the fact that we no longer have a middle class in Nigeria. It's either you are average or you are poor. Forget about the elites of the elite. There is no middle class because all of that wrong has been taken out because of policy reforms that are not working, or at least in the meantime, it's not helping to bolster activities in the country. We need to ask the likes of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, as led by Better I Do. At least you are the mouthpiece of the president in that sector. We have a crisis on our hands. Ministry of Agriculture, we do have a crisis on our hands. How are we really going to help Nigerians at this time? And offering freebies is not the solution at this time. Thinking of, then again, the holidays are coming. You're going to see state governments run around and use billions of naira to buy bags of rice, enrich a few, and then come and share cups of rice for Nigerians. We really need to think of solutions that are geared towards helping the Nigerian people, because, at this point, September alone, we saw the fact that Nigeria's inflation had risen to 26.72%. We do not know what our current indices is as at this time of the country. Also occasioned by the fake scarcity of naira notes, that was going to start somewhere. At least we know that the Central Bank of Nigeria has warned that money is in circulation. let's see how we can actually help Nigerians at this time. But Francis, I think you take that very last story that is annoying this morning. I mean, when you're seeing that Salako, one of the president's ministers is asking that the Nigerian youth should make their contributions before they come on board and make demands. You're really wondering, do you really think that Nigerian youths are not doing something in this country?
Well, of course, when it comes to Nigerians and Nigerian youths, I don't think there is anybody who can debate or argue that Nigerian youths are lazy. I mean, we are the most creative individuals the world over. We're the most resilient. We're the most hardworking, group of persons you find across board. One question that has been constantly asked is, you're calling Nigerians, if you're calling Nigerian youths lazy, what happens to Nigerian youths when they step outside the shores of Nigeria? Can you also say they are lazy? Because we've seen how people who seem to not make headway, leave the shores of Nigeria, and then within a twinkle of an eye, their fortune, their lifestyle, everything changes. It's literally like, there was some fairy goddess or fairy princess.
They just go to systems and work.
Just waiting outside the shores of Nigeria, and the moment they cross over, she just waved the wand, and then everything about the Nigerian youth life transformed. But that goes to show that it's not about the Nigerian youth. It's about the system in the country. It's about our government. It's about the policies. It's about the poor policies for businesses to thrive. I mean, we have a whole lot of Nigerian youths who are doing one business or the other. How good is the business environment? How supportive is the business environment? How encouraging is the business policies, or are the business policies that have been put in place by the respective administration in this country? When we begin to sit down and look into this aspect and then see how to transform and change the narrative, then we will be ready to see change. The issue of high cost of living and all the other things that have been complained by Nigerians is not going to change. Right? It will shock you to know that as far as the government of Nigeria is concerned, there is nobody that's regulating anything. Look, for instance, people just on a daily basis, it's still happening. Somebody can stay in a Kwabam state and just, something he or she had stocked like 2-3 months back, and then you're going to buy that thing, they'll tell you wait. And what are they waiting for? The wait you're being asked to wait is to make a call to find out at that material time how much that thing is being sold for. And so the thing they had stocked months back is being sold for you today at the exact price that is being sold today, the new price. But these are things that people had stocked months back. But what are the price regulators doing? What is the Consumer Protection Council of Nigeria doing? What are the relevant government agencies in the country doing? Absolutely nothing. So we need to get past making excuses. We need to get past calling on Nigerians to sacrifice to actually making the system work. Once we are able to do that, then we can watch and see how Nigerians will progress.
Definitely. We'll have to watch and see how Nigerians will progress. But that's where we're going to put a pause to all of the stories that we have this morning. There's so much more that we have on Rise and Shine this morning. Of course, we're going to go into in-depth analysis of this weekend's elections. And of course, we'll be joined by a public affairs analyst who's going to be able to be looking at those things squarely. At this time, we're going to take a quick break and head on to the news brief desk where we have Mary Joseph on standby to bring us tidbits of global news. When we return, we'll be up with the papers and the analysis of the elections as was just concluded. Stay with us.
For brilliant broadcasts and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world, watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
as we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to improve voting lapses in counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum. Live from Uyo, I am Mary Joseph. First in the news this morning, the keenly contested November 11, 2023 Kogi State governorship election has finally produced a winner, with the All Progressives Congress APC candidate Usman Ododo clinching the much coveted seat. The state returning officer, Professor Johnson Urama, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, announced Ododo as the winner at 10:23 p.m. on Sunday. Ododo won with 400,046 votes, with about 237 votes defeating his closer rival, Muritala Ajaka of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, who scored 259,052 votes, while Dino Milaye of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, polled 46,362 votes. In a related development, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on Sunday night adjourned the correlation of results in the November 11, 2023 Bayelsa State governorship election till noon today. Results from 6 of the 8 local government areas in the state, namely Kolokuma, Opokuma, Agbiya, Yenegwa, Sagbama, Negbe, and Erekmo, have been collated. The remaining local government areas are Bras and Southern Ijaw. Professor Farouk Kuta, who is the Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Technology, Mina, and the state returning officer for the election in Bayelsa, adjourned the exercise on Sunday night. In a separate development, the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawale, says the federal government is hopeful of producing 1.9 million barrels of crude oil per day before the end of the year. Matawale, in an interview, said many practical gains had been recorded in the resolve to end oil theft in the Niger Delta region. He revealed that the measures had been put together at the naval headquarters to detect and know how all that was happening in the stream and all maritime areas. We head straight now to the foreign scene, where Israeli President Isaac Herzog has denied that Israel is striking Gaza's largest hospital. Reports from staff at the Al-Shifa suggested the facility sheltering thousands of Palestinians has run out of electricity, but Herzog said everything is operating at the hospital. Speaking to media, he said also a copy of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf was found on the body of a Hamas fighter in northern Gaza. Herzog further alleged that a copy translated into Arabic was found just a few days ago in a children's room that had been turned into a military operation base of Hamas. And finally, in sport, Novak Djokovic will end the year as world #1 for a record 8th time after he beat Holger Rune at the ATP Finals in Turin, Italy. The 24-time Grand Slam champion overcame the Dane 76, 6-7, 6-3 in his opening group match at the season ending on Sunday. We'll have details of this and more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine, where we have Francis and Oyai on standby. Do have a wonderful day.
Government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for SpectrumTv to improve voting lapses in counting.
For brilliant broadcasts and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world. Watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on StarTimes to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Welcome back. Of course, it's still Rise and Shine, the Monday morning edition brought to you by Spectrum Television. And we're beaming live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Of course, talking Nigeria this morning, Mary Joseph just brought us tidbits of global news. And before we went on the news brief desk, we've looked at a myriad of issues, of course, affecting us as a nation. Top of which would include the fact that our president was out of the country over the weekend in Saudi Arabia for some business talk, and he performed a lesser hajj to pray for God's guardians for him as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There's also speculation and promissory conversations by the federal government and Dangote refinery to see that they will refine 300,000 barrels per day worth of crude. These are promises until Nigerians begin to see real-time, results. Will celebrate less. We also see the fact that there was a really sad incident at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja yesterday, where we saw an aero contractor aircraft crash land at that particular airport. Of course, investigations are going to be done, as we do not want to hear any kinds of air crashes at this time. Also, SERAP has moved and asked that the federal government and the judiciary make sure they move to arrest sponsors and punish electoral offenders of the just concluded season of election. We also see the fact that INEC has uploaded 9,925 election results out of the off-cycle elections that happened in Imo, Kogi and Bayelsa. Biggest question, did we have just 9,000 people come out in these three states to cast their vote? Well, you would have the brunt of our conversation about this on our YouTube channel and on our website, Spectrum TV Live. You would like to go there and get the scoop of everything we've talked about so far on Rise and Shine. There's still a lot more to look forward to this Monday morning. I just want to go straight to Daily Spotlight. Let's look at the plethora of stories that the front pages of our national dailies will bring.
Well, on Daily Spotlight this morning, we're starting off with the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. And the Kikada says, off-cycle governorship elections. Uzodimma Ododo win in Imo, Kogi, Bayelsa ready for today. The stories on page 14 of the Vanguard newspaper. The riders, there are plenty, but let's just take a few. Bayelsa collation continues today. Uzodimma polls 540,308 votes to floor Anyanwu 71,503 votes. Achonu 64,081 votes. PDP wins 5 of 6 local governments, leads in Bayelsa. Collation of 2 local government continues today. Malaya calls for cancellation in 3 Kogi local government areas. Imo PDP Labour Party kicks call for cancellation of result. Poll didn't hold in some Imo polling units. Yanga Africa, a female NYSC member missing with Beavers, result shed. Uzodimma's re-election well-deserved. Sanwo-Olu, Nwefunu, Kalu, we have learned nothing. Catholic bishops protest in Bayelsa over Nembe Basabiri result. Of course, the stories are all the riders to the off-cycle election in Imo, Bayelsa and Kogi. Still on the front page of Vanguard this morning, we see insecurity now business. That's according to Matawali. Stories on page 8. Serious concern there raised. Of course, still on the front page of Vanguard. Edo to become first world economy. Obasiki, Igodalo and Dangote others. The stories on page 11. Annual confab. Amuka Oshoba Oba Bena lead 300 editors to Uyo. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Moving on from the Vanguard, our very next stop is going to be the Nigerian Tribune. Big story on Nigerian Tribune, of course, election-related stories this morning. APC in sweeping victory in Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa to be decided today. Of course, we also see the fact that Labour Party, ADC rejects Imo result. LP agent manhandled, bundled out of collation center in Imo. INEC officials held hostage in Bayelsa. Identity, arrest sponsors of electoral offences, says Serap to Yakubu. Pages 26 and 27 is where we find details of these stories. Edo South changes political calculation, dwells on numerical strength. Page 4 is where you can find details. New Supreme Court justices emerge this week. FJSC to nominate to NJC. Page 2, of course, that was an issue about last week where we saw the fact that we have a depleting number of justices at the Supreme Court. Of course, and that is not good for proceedings of cases. We also see here investors must establish factories in Nigeria to produce what they mine. Okay, says Alake, page 12. Rule-based markets will drive foreign investors in stock market, says Onasanya. It is immoral of government to ask us to pay for vacant billboards, says Ima Ajufo, page 21. Everyone is trying to, look for a way to make money off the next person when you see how the economy is. Well, I'm sure that this is the Billboard Association of Nigerian Owners crying out for themselves. We also see here annual confab, Amuka or Soba or Biangbena lead 300 editors to Uyo. Bauchi Emirates sacks 6 traditional title holders for improper turbaning. Page 28. 13% derivation. COP cautions Niger governor over threats to shut down hydro dams. Page 4. NNPC settles Pengasin. Total Energies lingering rift restores 275,000 barrels of oil per day production. Page 6. Last area on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. 40% revenue deduction. Varsities have no IGR as tells federal government. Yeah, that's one of those conversations that was pending. We'll probably look at it this morning.
Of course, that takes us to the next paper we'll be looking at this morning, and that will be the front page of Daily Trust. On the front page of Daily Trust this morning, we see Imo Kogi Bielsa polls. Uzodimma Ododo win as Diri maintains lead. Opposition candidate parties cake. Election rigged, but I won't waste my time in court. SDP Ajaka. PDP supporter killed. INEC official abducted in Bayelsa State. The story is on page 4 and 12 of Daily Trust. Still on the front page of Daily Trust, grumbling. Over $54 million domestic airlines trap fund. The story is on page 23. Still on the front page of Daily Trust, Nigerian lawmakers most ridiculed, says Senate President Akpabio. That story is on page number 15 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Flight diversion congestion at Abuja Airport over runway incursion. Of course, I'll ensure National Assembly create constitutional role for traditional rulers. Sustainable story is on page 13 of the Daily Trust newspaper. NNPC restores 275,000 barrels daily production. Page 24 has a story. Without my actions, NOD would have been on fire. That's according to Matawale. 5 killed in Sagamu Benin Expressway crash. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of Daily Trust this morning.
Moving away from the front page of Daily Trust, our very next stop this morning. Our very next stop will be the Punch newspaper this morning. Looking at the front page of the Punch newspaper, the very big story there says PDP LP kicks as Uzodimma Ododo win protest in Bayelsa. We also see here Uzodimma wins all local governments. Opposition rejects Imo Kogi results, saying no election took place. Dewey's supporters protest as Silva win Nembe with 22,248 votes. APC defends victory in local government. We also see here Dangote refinery, of course, secures license to refine 300,000 barrels per day crude. Page 22 is where we have details. VC's right, federal government reject 40% varsities IGR deduction. Kali, pace-setting military Amazon takes last salute. Page 3 is where you have details of that particular story. Of course, Edita Summit that's going to be holding here in Rio. Federal government aims for 1.9 million barrels per day, intensifies war against oil theft. Nigerians make unfair demands on lawmakers, says Senate President. Senate President must come and tell us what the unfair demands are. What are the demands that they are making on Nigerians? Artists take ill during church concert, dies in hospital. Very sad story there. Page 5 is where you find details of that. Israel, Hamas, Arab nations condemn Gaza killings, want ICC probe. Page 20, and that's all we have on the front page of the Punch.
Well, from the front page of Pons, we head on to our next stop this morning. That will be the front page of the Nation newspaper. On the front page of the Nation this morning, we see the kicker that says Imo Kogi governorship polls, Uzodinma Ododo triumph. Of course, the rider there says INEC keeps Bielsa's leading candidates Diri in suspense. Achenua Jaka Malaya reject elections outcome. Of course, that story is on page 26 of the Nation newspaper. Naira to rebound with 34.8 billion US dollars diaspora remittances. That story is on page 13. Customs raises exchange rate for importers, rate up by 12.29%. Stories on page 5. Nigerian equities return rises to 10.7 trillion naira, page 14. 156 billion naira dispute. UBA takes over Stallion's assets. Stories on page 6. Still on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning. Inflation rises and soaring food energy prices. We also see terrorists kill 100 in Burkina Faso attack. Heavy fighting rages near main Gaza hospitals. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
Our very last paper for this morning has a rather beautiful twist that I like. It's not flooded with all the election stories. The Daily Times, big story there says, as the carnage continues, I can end herdsmen killings, kidnappings in months, I beg your pardon, says Fulani herdsman. They are my people. I have all their secrets at my fingertips, he says. Federal governments will be involved. Okay, of course, that's a Daily Times exclusive right there. Page 4, I can end herdsmen killings and kidnappings in months, says a Fulani herdsman. We also have here, of course, NNPCL, other revenue generating agencies remit 14.38 trillion naira. And when we keep remitting this money, we wonder where else that they put them into, as opposed to the trillions we are now going outside to borrow for our budgetary allocations. But an agency is remitting 14.38 trillion naira. Are they promissory remittances, Francis? There's a lot that is happening in this country that needs explanation. And we also see calls for restructuring research. Gani Adams, Precious Tinubu, Nigeria going nowhere without restructuring, says Akintola San. Delta-based human rights lawyer doubts president can do it. Atiku Obi had made case for structure that carries all Nigerians along. Okay. We also have here LP PDP kick as INEC declares Uzodinma winner of Guba polls. Page 5. Diri leading in Bielsa, hitches in Kogi. We also see here Obaseki, my friend, despite political differences, says Oshimole, page 9. We also have here the last story. I was bus conductor, wheelbarrow pusher, laborer, says AMAC chairman, Amak chairman, page 21. Is where you have details, and that's all the stories that we have on the front pages of our national dailies. Of course, majorly a plethora of the events of the last weekend with regards to the just concluded cycle of, rather the off-cycle elections in Imo, Bielsa, and Kogi states.
Well, of course, that takes us to the end of Delhi Spotlight. A lot of stories majorly focusing on the off-season elections in the 3 states, Bielsa, Imo, and Kogi. And, of course, that's what we'll be talking with our guest this morning, who will be joining us to dissect and look into the issues arising from the off-season elections in Imo, Bielsa, and Kogi State. Of course, we will be talking with Dr. Anthony Usoro, who is a good governance advocate, among other things. But that will be when we return from this time out. Stay with us.
For brilliant broadcasts and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world, watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
course, it's still Monday morning, Rise and Shine. We apologize for the delays in bringing our guest on this morning, but of course, he is currently ready to have that conversation with us. We have joining us Dr. Anthony Usar. Of course, he's a good governance advocate, and what a better time to have a good governance advocate. We just had the off-cycle elections in Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa State. How good would he rate the just concluded INEC proceedings? Good morning, Doctor. Good to have you on the show this morning.
I'm hearing a little echo from your end. I don't know the sound. Ask your sound engineer, some echo coming from your end.
All right, we trust that will be handled immediately. We apologize for the inconvenience. Okay. But let's just get your overall thoughts with regards to the off-cycle elections that happened November 11. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of specific questions, what are your thoughts generally? How well do you think INEC did? How well do you think that the security agencies did also on Saturday?
From the little available to me, the information available to me, well, INEC has seriously compromised its integrity. So, in fact, the consequence was the low turnout we saw in all the areas. There's no doubt about that. And also, suppression of voters is deliberate by especially the ruling party. They suppress voters in many areas, which they do together with INEC. So that's a fundamental problem, we have. So INEC did not impress me at all. I gather they did some IREV. Data was uploaded into their IREV, but I don't know, maybe just to compensate for the other one. They told lies there was a glitch in February 25th. They deliberately switched off the IREV at that time. So it's difficult to see. What we are seeing now are symptomatologies of a major pathology this nation called Nigeria has. So these are all the issues you see left, right, and center. Be it it's worse in Imo and in fact worse in Kogi. Bayelsa, well, to a little extent, I don't know. They try to prevent them from hijacking the votes. I think that was basically what happened. As much as possible, INEC should be an independent organization led by good men and women, not buccaneers. That's the challenge. That's what I observed. And people are so poor currently with hunger. The security agents are likely to be compromised. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, we don't know if that's a glitch in sound or if Doctor is still with us. Tisa, let's know if you can still hear us this morning. Okay, there seems to be an issue there, but of course, we're just taking Dr. Anthony's pulse on his general thoughts as regards the election yesterday. One thing he has pointed out this morning, he thinks that INEC has greatly misrepresented themselves in the face of Nigerians. Are they joining forces with powers that be to play on the intelligence of Nigerians? Okay, Doctor is still there this morning. We see, like you were just saying, the Bayelsa election seems to have an inconclusive tone, especially with the introduction last minute of Timi Praise Silver to be able to run for that election. Of course, he is of the APC, but we see that so far Diodire, who is the incumbent governor, seemed to be leading the election in that state. Do you think that with the postponement to finish up polls in Bayelsa, that it is going to end in favor of whoever now that Bayelsans choose?
Yeah. The problem we have in Nigeria is basically it's easy to do things properly. If you're doing things properly, it flows seamlessly. When all these delays and say you're going to do or postpone a few centers and all that. It happened in Kano. They gave it to who did not win, who the people did not vote for. Eventually gave. So some of those delays are for that. But I doubt if Silva can play out all those stunts. It will be very difficult for him in the circumstance. The incumbent may not allow that. It's pretty difficult for them to do. I know it's a fight between the center and the incumbent in Bayelsa. But as much as possible, they allow the people's will to prevail. It's so simple. If not, all these delays are unnecessary. In fact, if everything is done properly, the results should be out by, you finish the polling by 6, the results should be out by 8 p.m., 8 p.m. or 9. There's no big deal about it. But once you're planning, schemes, negative schemes, it will drag for a day or 2 or 3 or 4. What's the big deal? Yes, there's nothing there. If it's open, I remember the election IBB did with Professor Nwosu. It came out very fast. They knew this. They knew Abiola won everywhere. There's no doubt about it. They knew. They couldn't stop it. All they had to do was to annul it. They didn't say the election was wrong, was inconclusive, and all that. So I think the reason is just for corruption. It's just the reason to steal the will of the people, which is not very good.
Okay,
that's our albatross in Nigeria.
Doctor, let's look at some of the reactions coming. We know that the likes of Dino Melaye, Senator Dino Melaye, has described the election in Kogi, for instance, as being complete violations of the rights of the people. And of course, he described it as a fraud in broad daylight. He's also called for the cancellation of the elections in Kogi State. That is on one end. When you go back to Bayelsa State, the governor, the incumbent, is contesting with the APC, and we have other political parties. But right now, collation had been suspended for 5 local government areas till later today. Now, the reactions from some sections of the society is that there was absolutely no need for that collation to be suspended. And just like you stated in the earlier speech, would you say that this is in line with INEC trying to make sure that they give to the Bayelsa people the right person that has been voted for, and already, as it stands, the incumbent is leading, the PDP candidate is leading with the result that has come in. So is there a likelihood of us having any variations in the results when it eventually comes out?
Well, I don't think it's in the interest of the people. Those delays by INEC is deliberate. I think just deliberately just to give it to whoever they scheme to give it to. INEC is not a credible organization. There's no doubt about that. So they're not doing that in the interest of the people. They're pretending to be fair, but they are not. We know that. There's nothing hides on this planet. So I think that's all those delays are unnecessary. Yes. For a small election, a small state like Bayelsa with 8 local government areas, it becomes an issue. Since Saturday, you have not brought out results till now.
Okay, so, Doctor, are you still with us? Okay, I do hope the network allows us to wrap up this conversation as soon as possible. But one thing is certain, a lot of questions are being asked about Bayelsa State. I mean, there's a whole lot of power tussle happening in Bayelsa. There were a whole lot of calls coming from Bayelsa. Yesterday, when the former president of the Federal Republic, Goodluck Jonathan, voted, he called for sustenance of peace and, of course, for the different political parties to ensure that in the cause of seeking the people's mandate, no life is wasted, no life is lost. He calls for people, supporters of the different parties, to move away from violence in order for the elections to be over and done with. But just like the doctor has said, a lot of questions has come. Why collect some of the local governments and leave other local government areas aside? Okay, we have the doctor back. All right, so doctor, just let's get to see one of the comments and conversation coming off. Remember, before now, INEC has said everything that has to do with electronic collation of results is illegal and is not part of the electoral system. But we see that as a result of this off-season election, INEC have actually uploaded some of the results into the IREV. Now, I'd like to get your comment on this. First, they told Nigerians it is not going to happen. And in the middle of it, it happened. Just like we saw during the general elections where INEC came out to tell Nigerians we are going to upload results in real time. But when the elections came, it didn't happen. And then after that, we found the Nigerian judiciary and INEC, spending hundreds of thousands to try and defend and try to interpret things a different way.
Well, I don't. They have their predetermined agenda. It's not in the interest of the people. There is no doubt about that. So INEC does what it pleases. It's supposed to be independent. And if you such thing, you expect people of integrity. Yes, not people of questionable character like Yakubu Mahmoud. You need to have people of integrity, so that you be set to do the right thing. switching off IREV in February 23, and then they left the National still running. This happened concurrently. All these are stories. Before they said only electronic and all that. And I think the Supreme Court laboring and the appeal court laboring to confuse themselves. This is not, it's not supposed to be that they can do where it is. They can decide to collect in any manner or transmit in any manner. INEC is free. When you hear things like that, it's not right. It doesn't, because there's some of these things are being paid for corruptly. Yeah, that's the, they themselves, they're not a good organization. You need a good reform, and the current leadership is unlikely to have really good people running INEC, good people running the judiciary. That's all you need. That's all you need. People who have integrity, they care. We had them before, plenty. You can have maybe people like Tony Anyagolo. There are many of them. Kayode Shaw. Many of them. Or the wife of just the wife. There are many good judges. Good judges that get things done. They are not afraid of any.
Of course, we're still speaking to Dr. Anthony Usora this morning, looking at some of the responses coming out of the elections. Okay, Doctor, you can go ahead. We lost your audio for a second there.
Yes, I said all you need is to have good people, to have good in positions of authority, especially the judiciary, especially even INEC. Have good people. They were good. Eswa. This one was very good, very fantastic. There are many other good guys. Ovie Whiskey, even Professor Mosu. He thought he made an error. He could have announced that result that night. There's nothing IBB could have done. Yes, but he hedged. And then his secretary was blaming him. I've forgotten that guy's name, whether Usman something. Or blaming him for that. So that all you need is quality of, to have good governance, quality of leadership. People that are fearless, are courageous. Yeah, they don't dance to whims of people, maybe for pecuniary gains.
So we see
that's all you need. Once you have that, once you have that in place, there's no problem.
Okay, so we can primarily say, that to deduct from the things you're saying, part of the most serious problems that we have is the institution that we have conducting our elections. INEC as an electoral body is highly compromised. But let me take you a little bit to Imo State. Yes. Just before the elections, there was a fracas, a fallout between, Hope Uzodinma, the, incumbent governor, who has now won that election, with the NLC President Joe Ajero, where he was manhandled because they came to stage a protest in the state on behalf of unions and workers who have not been paid in over 20 months. We had said it here on Rise and Shine that the people with the biggest responsibility to vote in or vote out Hope Uzodinma will be the Imo citizens. But as it stands, with all of those allegations of unpaid 20-month salaries and all of other governmental inconsistencies, Dr. Hope Uzodinma has just been declared the winner of the elections in Imo State, and he has come out to say that his win has vindicated him in the in the eyes of Imos and even Nigerians at large. Where do you think that we usually miss all of this? Because at the end of the day, Imo's citizens are going to continue to get what they get from Hope Uzodinma as he returns.
Yeah, well, Hope Uzodinma was an imposition by the Fulan cabal. It's obvious. There's no, nothing hides on this planet. When that thing happened, the guy, the impunity, they removed him and brought in this guy to carry out their bidding. Eventually they directed them to give it to Uzodinma, who came forth at that election with flimsy reasons. So it's not there's not. Then somebody came out to write, I think on behalf of the Fulani, I don't know, Caliphate. He wrote a letter that there's nothing they can do. That we own Nigeria. We put Hope Uzodinma. There's nothing anybody can do. That we are Fulanis, we own this country. Allah gave it to us. So when you hear things like that, you know that a long essay. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you must have seen it. So they said they were deliberate. There's nothing anybody can.
Okay, we're having on and off audio there from Dr.
Had to do their bidding, and he refused. So they promised him that they're going to remove him. The guy was shocked. Everybody was shocked, when that happened. Yes, so it's not. It had nothing to do with it. He did not win that previous election. There's no, and there was story all over the place. I'm sure you're aware. that he voted taxpayers' money, 5 billion, taxpayers' money, 5 billion naira to buy over all hotel rooms in Imo State, just for his party and people playing roles for him for purposes of this election. So it has nothing to do with that. So it's not the will of the people. There's no doubt about it. Just do a sample survey of people in Imo State. You don't realize they basically don't want him, but he has to use force or brawn to keep himself in power. Yeah, so I wouldn't say he won the election. He did not. Anybody can. INEC declaring you doesn't mean you won the election.
Okay.
There's no doubt. Some of these stories will come out in future. It will come out fully by the key participants. They will reveal what truly happens. I know he didn't win. I'm convinced personally. He did not. He cannot win in the circumstance. In fact, the LP guy stood a better chance than this thing. They tried to remove the LP guy in Abia State, I think Oti. They tried. They made efforts to remove him, but they couldn't. Yes, they own the judiciary. They own everywhere, so they do what they like. So that's it. And the people are helpless. Yes, unless we change this crop of people, it's very, very difficult for even the country to progress.
Okay,
don't care about exchange rate and then petroleum prices and all that. Everybody is virtually poor. Everybody is virtually poor. When it's 133 million, it's not correct. Maybe up to 200 million, 200 something million. Poor. Because by the time you buy fuel, now all your money in your pocket is finished. Yes. So what's that? So you say, oh, those guys have done well. You vote them in. No, nobody votes them. Anybody in.
Okay. So summarily, we see the fact that these elections are going to end also once again in loads and loads of litigation. Dino Mela is already kicking in Kogi State. If it turns out in favor of Duodire in Bayelsa State, we are definitely going to see Timipre Sylvia kicking and all of those things. What are your final words? How Nigerians, especially in these 3 states, should position themselves with regards to this election that just held?
Like I told you earlier, it's a very helpless situation with the crop of rulers we have in the entire spectrum. A legislator, judiciary, executive. It's very difficult, but if they go to court, they are certain they'll possibly bribe their way in and collect the mandate from the genuine person that actually won. The same with Kogi. The guy there was an imposition too with Buhari and Co. They didn't want. They were fighting Tinubu at that time. So when Audu died, they tried to knock off Faleke. Audu's deputy when he died, because
Okay, we have that network there not allowing us to get Dr. Usora's final words this morning. But of course, you know how it goes. This particular conversation is going to continue to evolve. Bayelsa elections are quite inconclusive at the moment. And we are going to, keep our ears to the ground, our eyes to watch out what's going to happen as a result of these just concluded off-cycle elections. But we must say a big thank you to Dr. Usora for coming on the show this morning, sharing his wealth of knowledge, raising very pungent concerns about the stability of INEC as an electoral body and what role it is playing in tilting the narrative of democracy in Nigeria. But this is the much we can take on Monday morning episode of Rise and Shine until we return to your screens tomorrow to look at stronger issues happening in the country. My name remains Uyaya, and you can enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of our programs. Do ensure that you follow us across all social media platforms, all of which you can find at SpectrumTv Live. Let's get the conversation going and let's move the information around. Do have a great day.